Let's talk to historian and academic Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Hello, Rafe.
Always a pleasure, Kevin.
Well, you got the notion of what I wanted to talk about. Populism is always treated like a very, very dirty word by our friends in Westminster and all over the world. We must protect ourselves from the scourge of populism. Well, populism is the pursuit of popular policies. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I mean, look, 2024 is a remarkable year because almost half the world is voting in elections this year. And you would think that would be a great cause for celebration of freedom around the world. But it prompted Bloomberg in America to write an article where the headline said, 2024, the year of elections, is a threat to democracy. Yeah. You can't make this stuff up. But it perfectly encapsulates, it encapsulates the fear of our elites, because they believe that they know what's right, as you were saying. They know what's right in the world. And that's where their deep disdain for democracy arises, because it promotes the interests and will of the people. And what we have here essentially are two competing revolutions. One is top down and the other one is bottom up. And that's the best way to sort of understand what's going on, because for a quarter of a century now, Britain and the Anglosphere primarily, but also elsewhere in Western Europe, have gone through this top-down revolution. We are now a post-revolutionary society. You can see it all around us. And against the will of the public, it's our elites who've imposed this cultural and sort of social revolution on us, from mass immigration to woke ideology. I mean, you can name so many examples now. And populism is the response to all of that. It's a reaction to what we've been put through without our choice. And that's where the bottom-up revolution is. And it's a grassroots movement which seeks to address finally and put the interests of the public against the elites. Yeah. That's why people like Rachel Reeves and the Labour Party feel threatened by this. Also, ideologically, populism is seen as being unpalatable because it asserts the will of the majority. It's popular will. Yeah. And as you know, right now, we're going through an era when it's minority interests that are preeminent, not majority interests. The majority are sneered at and condescended. They're thought of as being uneducated, and minorities are revered and idolized.
Yeah. I also think, Rafe, that, as I kind of explained a bit earlier, that the problem with populism for our politicians is it entails listening to the people. I think that's what's going on around Europe. There is this howl of rage, particularly in France, but also in Holland, Italy, where the people are going, look, for generations now, we've screamed about this, we've screamed about that, we've screamed about the migrant crisis, and you never ever listen to us. And push has come to shove, especially in France, where Macron has been given a message of great power, and that is, we're not listening to your protectionism, we're not listening to your paternalism, we don't want your superior ways, we want you to listen to us and do what we want, as opposed to not listening to us and ignoring us.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. This is a reaction against what's been imposed upon us for a quarter of a century. So the rise of populism is absolutely a creation of the centre, both the centre left and the centre right. And it's that sort of distant, arrogant globalist elite who had utter disdain for the views of the public that have created this behemoth, and they're paying the price for it. And, they just don't get it. You would have thought that, with the vote for Brexit, with the vote for Trump, people would have clued in to what was happening with the people. And yet they still haven't woken up. They still continue to ignore Europeans and the British people and Americans. And you can see, from when Leo Varadkar just assumed that the Irish people would go along with this referendum to remove the family from the Constitution, he and his comrades were absolutely shocked with a resounding defeat, and he had to lose. But it was so obvious that was going to happen. And you're seeing it again with Macron. The reason for the rise of Le Pen, the reason for the rise of the Reform Party here, is because Macron and the Tories under Sunak and Liz Truss and Boris Johnson simply haven't implemented the manifestos on which they were elected. All they needed to do was to get tough on immigration, get tough on woke ideology, and with the Reform Party would be in the single digits, because we know that it's immigration that is the driving force behind the support for the reform. And this isn't far right. These are the policies of a Conservative Party of the 1980s or 90s.
Yeah.
It's not a far-right movement. That's what the people are calling for, sensible conservative policies.
Yes, and you alluded to this earlier, Rafe. There's also the whiff of snobbery here. I think there are quite a few politicians in Westminster, just over my shoulder, not very far away, and obviously in France, Holland, who have always felt it is their job in their superior status to protect us, the masses, from our baser instincts. And I think the masses are now saying, no, we don't want to be protected from what you call our baser instincts. What our baser instincts are actually our desires, what we want our politicians to do for our country. They're not baser instincts. So there's that snobbery afoot as well, isn't there?
Absolutely, it's snobbery, and it's a fear of the people as well. And that's why, I mean, this is worry that, we can talk about these things in terms of, populism, but the serious effect of this is the way that the elites over the past couple of decades have been trying to take power away from the people because they are scared of them. And how do they do that? They do that by taking power away from Parliament, which represents the people.
Yes.
And so since Tony Blair, we've seen this huge transfer of power away from the people, away from Parliament, into the courts and into the quangos, these unelected, unaccountable bodies. We have this ridiculous thing called the Supreme Court, which makes no sense in our parliamentary system of government, because you can't have a Supreme Court and a supreme sovereign parliament. The two just can't coexist. It's an Americanization. And now, under the new constitution that Keir Starmer's going to bring in, he's going to implement Gordon Brown's reforms, which are actually going to entrench certain constitutional principles, which will make it almost impossible for Parliament ever to change that. Remember, Keir Starmer is a lawyer first and foremost. He came to politics very late, and he is very much in favor of judges having far more power in the future. We need to be very aware of what's coming to us under a Labour government. And there are going to be more quangos, these unelected, unaccountable bodies, which already deal with things like immigration and the economy and climate change. They're going to become far more insidious and far more pervasive in the 5 to 10 years ahead.
Absolutely, and I think in Europe already the message is clear, the game is up. Unfortunately, it's not quite up here, but I suspect it's not long coming. I think there will be some kind of revolution soon if our politicians carry on in the way that they have. Rafe, fantastic to talk to you as always. Thank you very much. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, historian and academic. Populism, blimey, popular policies, we can't have that. The people like that. Well, we can't do that then. Let me know what you think.